Man, this coronavirus has really got me down. It sucks that it's just all such bad news.
Cheer up, kid. It's not all bad. There's good news with this too.
How can a virus be good for anything?
Why, there's new opportunities for entrepreneurship. School closures extend spring break, and airfares have never been cheaper.
Aren't a lot of people gonna die though?
Oh, people die all the time. It's inevitable, really. Best not to dwell on that too much.
Easy for you to say. You're not a real person, you're just narrating this video.
What video? I don't know what you're talking about. So you see, kid, even with lethal infectious diseases, every cloud has a silver lining.
Gee whiz, I never thought of it like that. Maybe this isn't such a bad thing after all. No, actually, this is pretty bad. Alright, there's no doubt about it. The coronavirus is obviously very bad for the time being. It's going to have significant economic impact on many people. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, will become sick, and also thousands of people will die. None of those things are good. I'm not trying to make light of that situation at all. But you also have to think about the value of replacement. What would things be like in a normal year? How will this affect the mortality rate of all people as opposed to a normal year? And we also have to think about maybe some of the long-term economic impact the coronavirus might have. But before we jump into that topic as well as a few others, I just want to say thank you to all the new subscribers. We've gone from under 20,000 to over 30,000 subscribers in a week and a half, so it's been a pretty great week for the growth of the channel. I know a lot of you guys know me from poker or crypto, but I'm even seeing some people that didn't know me from either of those spaces. So it's nice to have you guys all here, and if you want to let me know in the comments below where you found this channel from, I'd really appreciate that. All right, so moving back to our main topic, let's talk about the coronavirus. Now, before we begin this discussion, I'm thinking about something that happened recently in politics, and I think it correlates pretty strongly. I'm thinking about when Bernie Sanders was seen saying these comments about Fidel Castro in Cuba.
He educated the kids, gave them health care, totally transformed the society.
We're very opposed to the authoritarian nature of Cuba. But it's unfair to simply say everything is bad. When Fidel Castro came into office, you know what he did? He had a massive literacy program. Is that a bad thing, even though Fidel Castro did it?
That's going to be a tough one for people to take. But anyway, there's this thing called nuance, which means things are a little more complex than they may seem. As an example, quite often when politicians argue with each other, they'll quote a bill and they'll say, you voted against the bill to save all the children in America. What is wrong with you? You animal. But if you look more closely at the bill had horrible things that would do other things that are big problems. So rather than say, hey, you voted against the bill that had big problems, but its goal was to save people, but it's debatable if it does it or not, they say, you voted against the bill to save children, you monster. Well, it's kind of the same situation here. We have this black and white view of the world. People are good or bad, and everything they do has to be good or bad. That's who they are. That's our identity. But the reality is that humans have many different moments on many different days, and there are all types of shades of gray. So it's totally possible that Fidel Castro can be a terrible authoritarian dictator who's made many mistakes and hurt many people in his life, but at the same time has done occasional things that were good. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, and that's something that I think the population tends to not agree with. You have to have a set in stone viewpoint, and that's just not the case. Another great example of a person where you have to be all or nothing is Donald Trump. You either have to think everything he's done has been the greatest thing ever and watch Fox News, or you have to think that he's an absolutely horrible human that's never made a single good decision in his life and watch CNN. And there's no middle ground. You can't have nuance. You can't be like, hey, maybe once in a while the guy does something right, but then also once in a while he makes mistakes because he's human. We can't have that around here. You're going to have to pick a side. So when I began to hear talk about ways the coronavirus could be potentially good, I wanted to listen to them. I wanted to hear what people had to say, and there's at least a couple interesting arguments that I've heard. In fact, maybe people will start eating more responsibly. When you go out to eat, it's easy to overeat, and now that you're at home, you're probably going to be making more reasonable decisions, and heart disease might go down. Maybe that one's just not going to happen. There are also some bad things that are going to happen too from self-quarantine. Divorces are almost certainly going to go up. I imagine that suicides will go up as well. And then people are not going to be able to work out anymore. But I gotta say, on that last one, I was ahead of the curve. I haven't been working out for years. But it's not just a life or death issue. There could be some other pros that are a bit smaller. For example, you can start really caring about your parents without actually having to go see them. Also, maybe some companies will start to realize that worker productivity can be just as high from home, and so more and more people can get to work at their house rather than having to go into an office they hate. This might end up being a great test spot for UBI. This possibly could be a situation where we have great self-reflection and a chance for social restructuring. And maybe, just maybe, one of the most factual positives about this entire thing is that this pandemic will change the way that we think about our inefficiencies, our failures, our weaknesses in the system, and how society has cracked them wide open and left a gaping hole that cannot be ignored, which should hopefully bring about the type of change that would have otherwise been procrastinated or ignored for decades to come, hundreds of years possibly, if not thousands, and will change our very core fabric of who we are. Also, you can buy the dip. Changing gears a little bit, I saw this tweet from my friend Jason Miller yesterday, which said, "I'm pretty convinced that in the future, COVID-19 will be seen as a net positive for humanity by a large number of people. Bails out Social Security and Medicare Ponzi's, reverses industrial pollution, reduces fossil fuel consumption, took at least $10 trillion from the top 1% leveling out the wealth gap, will lead to positive reforms in healthcare and possibly UBI." Someone said, "Ridiculous tweet." To which JMO said, "Discounting the initial loss of human life and quality of life, which obviously is very bad, I think it's reasonable that it changes human trajectory for the better 10 to 20 years down the line." Now, it's unclear if all of these things will come true, and they probably won't, but there is the framework now for some advancement for people in ways that might not have been possible before. As an example, if you think that rich people are too rich, well, they're not as rich now. Also, in this time of crisis, there are heroes stepping up to the plate and doing their thing to help the world, like Chef Jose Andres. Andres is famous for being one of the best chefs in the world, and since the coronavirus outbreak has made it his personal responsibility to try and help people eat. At first, he helped feed people on the Quarantine Princess cruise ship, but since then, he's changed his kitchens into places that can make food to help people eat during this crisis. "People have to eat," Andres said. "Not everybody is going to be able to go to the supermarket. We have areas in America that are food deserts. We have millions of Americans that, if you go to their kitchens are empty. Not everybody has money to fill up for a month. That's the reality. What are we going to do?" Unfortunately, though, when it comes to the coronavirus, it's not all been good news lately. And the coronavirus has claimed its first celebrity victim. And I'm, of course, talking about Vanessa Hudgens.
Yeah, till July sounds like a bunch of bullshit. I'm sorry. But, like, it's a virus. I get it. Like, I respect it. But at the same time, like, even if everybody gets it, like, yeah, people are gonna die. It's just terrible. But, like, inevitable? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this right now.
It's just so sad. I'm gonna miss her. You just never know how it's all gonna end. Moving on, I want to talk about this kind of movement to move over from calling it the coronavirus or COVID-19 to the Chinese virus, which has been picking up steam lately because we have a president.
There are some, at least one White House official, who used the term Kung Flu.
You know who said that?
I'm not sure the person's name, but would you condemn the fact
say
that
the term
Kung Flu,
again?
A person at the White House used the term
Just the
Kung
term.
Flu. My question is, do you think that that's wrong, Kung Flu? And do you think using the term Chinese virus, that puts Asian Americans at risk, that people might target them?
No, not at all. I think they probably would agree with it 100%. It comes from China. There's nothing not to agree. Okay, how about last question?
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. Comes from China. I want to be accurate. Yeah, please, John. Please. I have great love for all of the people from our country, but as you know, China tried to say at one point, maybe they stopped now, that it was caused by American soldiers. It can't happen. It's not going to happen. Not as long as I'm president. It comes from China.
But I think there's a pretty specific line on whether it's acceptable to call a virus by its location or not, which is if it becomes well known as its location, then that's fine. But if it doesn't, if the world is using a different term for it, and then months after it starts to outbreak, we decide to go back to calling it where it's from, that's the line. That feels pretty racist to me. For example, if we called the Spanish flu months after it came from Spain, that would have been pretty bad. But we started calling it the Spanish flu when it came from Kansas, which is the most likely point it started from. In fact, Spain's not even involved at all. The Spanish flu either came from Kansas, France, or northern China. Those are the most plausible theories. Note, Spain, not one of them. It makes me think of this Instagram post that I saw. Coronavirus is like pasta. The Chinese invented it, but the Italians will spread it all over the world. So it's not cool to be calling it the Chinese virus, but I can see what Trump is trying to do. There's been a bit of a pivot in the Chinese government recently to say that this actually might not have been from China after all, which is a reversal of the direction that they had been heading up until just a few days ago. Because of this, Trump is trying to respond by making sure it's clear that it did in fact come from Wuhan. So there's certainly some complexity to the issue, but I do think it's a step too far to be calling it the Chinese virus. That starts to stir up hatred for Chinese Americans. And remember, Chinese Americans are just as much Americans as you and me. Moving on to our final story tonight, still going to be based around China, but I want to talk about dealing with the coronavirus. As we see more and more cities and counties and states put things into shutdown, put things into lockdown, close all non-essential businesses, we're starting to see what it starts to feel like when governments have a very strong control in your life. And not everyone's happy about that. In fact, most people don't like the government getting to tell them exactly what they should be doing. But it starts to ask some bigger questions. What's the point where we're okay with it? As an extreme example, let's say that there was a virus spreading that would kill half of everyone who got it, and the government says no one leave your house at all. We'd be pretty okay with that because we're not going to take that coin flip on dying. But now let's say that it was 0.001%, so very unlikely, 1 in 10,000 or so. What about then? Well, then we would think the government is being ridiculous. Where is that line? What's the point where we say we're okay with this amount of government interference? What do you guys think? I think it's totally fair game when something kills 2% of the population to quarantine people until this thing is over. So I'm totally good with what they're doing nowadays, and I think most people are on that boat. But where is that line? And it's an important line. The government's been doing a lot of things lately to try and protect you. In fact, look at some of these drones from other countries.
And then monitor the major roads and the public spaces very quickly. And then if they spot any, sort of congregation of people, for so many people getting around with each other, then they can alert the staff on the ground, and then they can take actions or they take off measures to inform the public that not to be congregated or getting together.
I feel like in America we're not going to use drones like that. America, fuck yeah! China took a lot of heat for the way they handled this. They didn't publicly announce things early enough, that's for sure. We also don't know how reliable their data is. They also aggressively have monitored and controlled what people can post on social media. Tons of terrible things here that are bad that they shouldn't have done. And that's almost the theme of today's video. But what about the good that came from this? It didn't seem to spread that much from China, and they seemed to lock it down to specific areas that didn't end up costing them huge in other places. Will the rest of the world be able to take such effective measures against it? That question remains to be answered. Thank you guys for joining me here for today's video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'll be there. So should you.